Hi there everyone, it's Joe. Welcome back to my channel, and before we go into anything like card of the week or anything this week, I want to turn your attention to a deck that's been doing the rounds both at my locals, and the inspiration for it came from Japan, and I think this deck is really cool and I really wanted to share it with everybody. Now, it doesn't actually have anything from the Final Fantasy 9 or Type 0 decks, which is kind of sad, but the next deck list that I post up will definitely have cards from those decks in it. But this is a Knights based deck. Now, it's 3 colour, which is also interesting for many reasons, and it's not something that I've managed to crack down on, but this is something that other people are definitely doing, so I definitely wanted to share it with you guys so that you guys could try it for yourself. And it also focuses on some cards that a lot of people just haven't been playing, and it's really cool deck. So we're going to go straight into it, and this deck has 23 forwards, 18 backups, and 9 summons. So we're going to go straight in with the forwards first. Now, one of the prime things about this deck is Promo Lightning. Now, Lightning's done really well recently. She was in the winning deck for UK Nationals, and she's just been doing very well. And there's a reason for that. She's one of Lightning's very few big bodies that's just very powerful, and you can attack with it and it not kind of bite you in the arse or anything like that, because you can always use her S ability to be able to block as well, and block with a hell of a beefcake body on it as well. And due to some of the other cards in this deck, she just gets stronger and stronger, and it's really cool. The rare Lightning, I presume, is mostly in here to cater to the S ability for the Promo Lightning. However, I think that this Lightning is picked over the 6-drop one purely because she can steal games out of nowhere, whereas Lightning is more removal than actually pushing for the game. And then we have Ramza, who's also very powerful and very underutilized. I mean, I think a lot of people do know that Ramza's really powerful, but he just doesn't see that much play in a lot of decks, because a lot of Lightning decks focus on the Al-Cid combos and things like that. They forget that there are some real other powerhouses in that color. And Ramza's just exceptional in this deck, because he just gets so powerful so quickly, and when we get into the backups, you'll be able to see why. And the 4th Ramza, again, is probably in there for the sake of the S ability, but he's not bad in and of himself. Zalbarg is there as a search target, but he's also a really good removal piece against certain things, like now that Seven has come around, it'll be able to get rid of her, and there's other things like Warrior of Light who can get in the way. There's loads of little things that Zalbarg can do with. I've just thrown my shutter on the floor. There we go. We'll pretend that didn't happen. And then going into the water ones, then we have Agrius. The whole deck is built around Agrius. There's 6 of her in this deck. So we run 3 of the EX Burst one to search for Ovalia, who makes your knights more powerful, and we have 3 of the smaller one, who can kill guys just by discarding extra copies of herself. So she's just like a really cheap and easy removal piece, and she actually puts in a heck of a lot of work in this deck. I have tried this, but I've played against it more than I've played it, and it's just such an interesting deck. And one of the most interesting things about it, I mean, there's a Cecil in the deck, and Cecil's kind of a given because he's just like another power booster. He's just very good. But Garland is at 3 in this deck. Now, Garland is actually amazing in this deck. Like, he's so good. Especially if you have, because he's a search target, he's a knight himself, so he can be searched by Duke Goltana. He can be buffed by Ovalia, and he also gets buffs from Cecil. He just becomes an absolute monstrosity in this deck, because there's not a lot that can defend against even 12k block, you know, coming at your face constantly every turn. He has Brave, and if you make him a 9k guy with Ovalia, he's just really scary. And there's only 2 other cards in the deck that can pay for him, which are Warrior of Light and Brynhilda, but having the 3 copies of Garland in the deck mean that if you discard one to pay for another, it's not the end of the world, especially considering that there are multiple copies of Sage in this deck as well. It's just, there's a lot of, you know, cohesion and kind of synergy between all the cards in this deck, and it just works so well. So if it looks weird, I encourage you to go and try this deck, because it's actually amazing. And then rounding out the forwards in the deck, we have 2 Warrior of Light, because it's a cheap guy that you can just discard a Garland or a Brynhilda and have out, and it be a threat, and it can remove something much bigger than itself. And then you have Emperor, who I thought the Emperor was an interesting choice. I actually think that Zidane could also work in this deck if you decided to change 1 or 2 of the cards to have a bit more Final Fantasy 9 in it. Maybe play Garnet or something like that and change the summon so that you have more draw power in the deck. But even so, Emperor puts in a lot of work in this deck as well, because he shuts down so many things. If you wanted to learn more about Emperor, I have a card of the week all about him, which was posted a couple of weeks ago, so definitely check that out if you want to know more about him. So going into the backups now, we have 3 Sage, because Sage is really good, and in this deck it's actually particularly good because you can recur your Ramzas, your Lightnings, your Garlands, your Agriuses. It's just like, there's so many focal points in this deck that it's really strong, and Emperor isn't going anywhere if you're playing Sage. So it's like, you're just going to keep playing him, and it's just, you're constantly applying pressure to your opponent, and you're generating so much card advantage due to the number of search cards in this deck, like Agrius and Duke Goltana, that having quite so many high costing forwards doesn't actually affect you all that badly. And it's something that really astonishes me, because I normally only play like 3 or 4 5 CP units. This deck runs 3 Lightning, 3 Agrius, 3 Garland, is like, that's 9 at least, is a Cecil, so that's 10. And it doesn't actually affect you all that badly. But yes, we have 3 red mage as well, because giving a guy haste can steal games straight away. Do 2 Joke Goltana, because searching is a thing. You obviously want to be able to shuffle your deck, and in a deck like this, you want to be able to grab whatever, you want the options, and that's one of the biggest things about this deck. Lulu is there to buff Lightning and to buff Ramza. Not really a lot else in there, but having an 11k Lightning behind a Lulu and an Ovalia makes her an absolute monstrous beast. She's brilliant. And then Ramza will go to 10k through having 5 backups out, and then go to 12k by having Ovalia and Lulu out. So it means that you just have guys that are just too big to deal with, and especially if you've got a Garland next to them providing more pressure. And then underwater we have the 3 Ovalia, which are search targets for Agrius, and they're also just power boosters for your knights, so it's like a 2-drop Maria in this deck, which is insane. And then we have 2 Minwu, because Minwu's just good, you know, it's just a good card, you can't really fault them for playing that. And then 2 Scholar, which I presume Scholar is in here because there's not a lot of enter play effects apart from Zalbarg, but you can always like recover something as it's about to die. So if something's like really scary, or somebody's about to baham at you and you've got too many things that will die to it, you can just Scholar and save something. And then Chaos makes sense in this deck because obviously with 3 colours you want to be able to pay for everything, and you know, I've never really been the biggest fan of Chaos, but in this deck I would definitely keep it. And then we're moving on to the summons, and there's a heck of a lot of removal in this deck. So you have 3 Odin, which is the 4-drop Odin, and because anything that's small and irritating or has an ability that gets in your way, like an Emperor, a Cloud, a Warrior of Light, it just kills them all. And Vincent isn't that big a deal for you because all of your guys are so big that, you know, Vincent's only going to be able to kill one guy at the cost of 7 out of his 7 CP, or 5 and a copy of himself. So it doesn't actually affect you all that badly. And then you have 2 copies of the 7-drop Odin, which obviously adds to your EX burst count, of which there's actually quite a nice amount in here. It's not like heavy, but there's a nice amount in here. And then you have a single copy of Leviathan, which you could up to 2 if you wanted to add to removal. The only thing that I'm a little questioning on is this single copy of Fairy. I'm wondering if it's just to kind of bluff Ramza, but I think that if it were me, I would possibly change it to a second Leviathan. And then lastly you have 2 Brunhilde, which is another EX burst, and the primary reason for this, I think, is so that you have something to pay for Garland that can do something else within the game. It's just like a really, really cool play, and I've tried kind of changing little bits about this deck, and I think literally Fairy is the only thing I would actually change in here, but everything else just seems to work so beautifully. I've tried Under Earth instead of Fire and having Deleter because he's a knight, and then you get access to your Shantotto and stuff, but then your curve goes too high, and it's just like, this deck is just really, really cool, and I really want you guys to go out and play it because it's just so much fun. And there's so many other things that you can add. With Opus 3, who knows, there might be more knights that come out. There's just a lot. Amarant could fit in here if you really wanted him to instead of Garland, though I really like the Garland play. But yeah, it's just a really, really awesome deck, and I would very, very heavily suggest playing against it or getting one of your friends to play it. It's not an expensive deck to build either. This is one of the best things about it. If you can't afford a lot of the legendary cards in the game, then build this deck, because the promo Lightning is not worth a lot of money. You don't have to run a single legendary Cecil. You could change that for literally anything. Yes, Cecil's very, very good, but he's not an absolute kind of necessity in this deck. You have Minwu in the deck, and all your guys are massive, so Cecil is very, very good. It's not necessarily going to push too hard. If you've got it, great. If you don't, switch it for literally anything. The backups are all really, really cheap. A lot of the cards are cards that no one's really playing right now. Emperor could be changed for Zidane, as I've said, from the Final Fantasy 9 starter deck. Something you could change Cecil for could be Garnet, and then you could change the Leviathan to a Moogle or another Fairy, and then that way you're putting a more sort of draw power variant of the deck, but it's cheaper, and then that makes it so it's a really, really good deck for new players to play. So if you've got people who are wanting to get into the Final Fantasy TCG and don't have an awful lot of money, show them this video, show them this deck, and get them building it, because it's really, really, really strong, it's really, really, really fun, and it's really, really, really different. So I would definitely encourage you guys to just get new players playing this deck. And that's it for this video. Now, I hope you've enjoyed it, and you may have noticed that my hair has changed yet again, and it's kind of a very nice day for a white wedding. But I like it, so hopefully you guys do too. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to follow me on Twitch, where I started streaming about a month ago, and it's been going really, really well, and I thank everyone that's followed me on that. And I'm expecting everyone to start subscribing to this channel more, because I want to be able to get more stuff going. So thank you very much again for watching, and I will speak to you guys soon. Bye now.